Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again. If you have already joined us for the first two sessions, we are in the third session right now, and we're going to be discussing gym and athletic facility maintenance. Today, we have Susan Heller, Vice President, and Roger Robbins, Assistant Manager of HY Floor and Game Line Painting, to walk us through how to take care of your hardwood floors. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan and Roger.
Hi, everybody. As Andrea stated, my name is Roger. This is Susan, and today we're going to talk about gym floors. Let's see here. So let's first start off with who we are, brief introduction. HY Floor was started in 1969 by a former Foothill College custodian. It started out as a painting company and maintaining gym floors, but it moved into installing gyms and commercial floors as a way to keep our workforce employed throughout the year. Our current owner, Steve Heller, has actually painted, finished, and repaired hundreds of sports floors since he started with HY back in 1977. Our field employees have, on average, 15 years tenure with the company, and our long-term customers include many local colleges, public and private schools, community centers, and corporate facilities. Now, before we get into how to handle your floors, let's just go into a brief overview of the history of gym floors at large. As far back as 1885 was the first time we saw maple lumber into flooring. Shortly thereafter, basketball was invented in Massachusetts, and the first game was played just a year after that. The world's oldest existing basketball court is in Paris, and it opened in 1893. And the important date to remember is in 1897, the MFMA was founded. But who is the MFMA, and why do we care what they have to say? That's the big question. They are the Maple Flooring Manufacturers Association, and they've been around for quite some time. We consider them to be the authoritative source on all things technical and general information as it comes to maple flooring and all things related to sports flooring systems. The MFMA membership consists of maple flooring manufacturers, installation contractors, distributors, and allied product manufacturers. Even the NBA relies on the MFMA for guidelines for their courts. You can use the link on the slide if you want to get more information on the MFMA themselves. But just for a tidbit of information, the MFMA says that there's about 860 million square feet of basketball courts that have been installed since 1979. 70% of which are maple, and maple, because of its durability, comes generally from north of the 35th parallel in places such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Canada. But now that we've got the history out of the way, we can talk briefly about what is so special about wood sports floors. Well, according to the MFMA, properly maintained maple floors can last up to 75 years. With a good subfloor, the wood sports floor is more resilient than any other playing surface, which means that it's better on the joints of the athletes and players that will be using the floor. The MFMA maple wood is stronger than oak and lasts longer than rubber, carpet, and synthetic flooring. And it is easier to change the painted graphics on the wood floors than almost any other surface. So as an example, the NCAA floor markings have changed at least 3 times in the last 5 years. And so using a wood floor makes it easy to change those lines as necessary. And of course, it is the job of facilities managers such as yourselves and contractors like us to keep up with these rules. Now, it appears we've run into a little bit of technical difficulties. This is supposed to be a short video, but I think what we've decided to do is we're going to actually drop a link in the chat, and then you can view it at your leisure at the end of the presentation. But generally speaking, this video is just going to give you a quick run through of what it looks like to maintain your floors, which we'll cover in further slides. So let's see here. So now we're going to talk about the different forms of maintenance when it comes to your floors, specifically daily, weekly, annual, and long-term. As far as your daily maintenance goes, the dust mop is your best friend. The dust mop, you should use it as needed. And this could be as many times as multiple times a day, depending on your floor usage. Unbeknownst to most people, dust actually makes your floor quite slippery. So dust mopping can prevent slippery floors. Dust mops heads should be laundered aside from other textiles at least once a week. But we generally recommend that you do not use dust mop treatments unless you're advised and warranted by the floor finish manufacturers. Going on to our weekly floor maintenance, the best thing you could do is tack your floors, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later. You can also shake out or vacuum your walk-off mats regularly. The MFMA does not recommend auto scrubbers, but if you have to use one, you should get trained by the people who sold it to you. Can't emphasize that enough. Using an auto scrubber for up to a year on a new floor or freshly sanded floor may actually void your warranty. So be careful when dabbling with auto scrubbers. And on a weekly basis, it's pretty a good idea to look for signs of water intrusion, broken boards, and leacher problems, because detecting them early can save you some money. Now, going back to the tacking part, what is tacking? Well, tacking generally refers to a routine of cleaning your floors, and this can be done totally in-house. You should do it before a game, maybe daily, kind of on an as-needed basis, and it won't take any more than 30 minutes. Things that you're going to need to tack your floor is 1 5-gallon bucket and some clean water, 7 or more clean towels, obviously depending on the size of your floor. The more towels you'll need, the bigger the floor. A neutral cleaner, pH 7, that can come in an assortment of different brands and varieties, and a 3-foot heavy-duty soft bristle push broom. These are the ingredients to tacking. But actually, for the tacking process itself, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to dust the entire gym with a dust mop. You're going to want to after your floor has been completely dusted, you're going to want to mix the cleaner with the water, roughly an 8-to-1 ratio, or whatever the cleaner's instructions recommend, to create a solution, mixing the pH that we spoke about earlier with the water. But again, one really, really important takeaway from this is that more cleaner is not always better. Having too much of the cleaner in the mixture of the solution can actually harm your floors. So try and stick with whatever is recommended for the instructions of the product. Then as far as the process itself, you're just going to want to take the towel and dunk it into the solution and wring it out. You can do this barehanded, or you can wear gloves. It's a pretty neutral and safe solution. Then you're going to lay the towel on the ground, put the broom over it. You're going to want to wrap the towel around the head of the broom, and then you're going to want to walk the whole gym. And as you do a straight line from one side of your gym to the next, you're going to flip the towel and adjust it a little bit to where the line is a new line to pick up new dirt and traction. And then you're just going to keep going. Rinse and repeat the entire floor. As you go on, you'll see and notice that some of your towels are going to get quite dirty. So you just swap them out for a new towel. Again, don't ever mix a dirty towel back into the solution. And then, yeah, as you finish walking the perimeter with the solution and the broom, you can pick up the dirty towels on your way out. And yeah, you've got a brand new clean floor. As far as annual maintenance goes, this can go by many names, including scrub and recoat, refinish, etc. This can be performed by well-trained custodians, but generally speaking, it's recommended that we leave it to experienced floor contractors. Refinishing is the process where the floor is cleaned really well, the existing finish is abraded, and the paint is touched up with new coat finish and applied. Make sure that the operator is experienced in their method of choice, that being specifically a wet scrub versus a dry scrub. And we want to make sure that they are experienced in their method of choice, because there are some things that can go wrong in proper maintenance. Those things including adhesion problems, moisture problems, and puddles of finish. Now, beyond just your annual maintenance, what are your long-term solutions for maintaining your floor? Well, the biggest one is sanding and refinishing. The MFMA recommends gym floor should be sanded every 8 to 12 years, whereas the NBA says that every 5 years is their standard. It depends on the use in the floor and sometimes on maintenance mistakes. But sanding is when the paint and finish are completely removed down to the bare wood. It has to be done by a professional with the proper equipment. We don't recommend you do this in-house. The most qualified contractors will be using writing sanders. The floor is then repainted and refinished and will look brand new. We actually have a couple of images coming up about what it would look like before and afters. But keep in mind, according to the MFMA, the average 3/4 inch thick maple floor can be sanded up to 6 times in its lifetime. But these are just some general photos of what it looks like to actually be in there sanding the floors. And this is a before and after of what a sand can actually look like. So it is quite night and day in terms of what the floor does. Now, on the topic of what can possibly go wrong, let's talk about things such as paint and finishes and how it's so important that they need to stick together. Because when you run into adhesion problems, you'll get things such as peeling. Most problems are caused when the old layer of the finish or the paint is not properly abraded before the next coat is applied. Think about the process to prep the wall to be painted. Tape pull is the #1 cause of peel. We cannot emphasize this point enough, that there is no such thing as safe tape for your gym floors. Lower VOCs in the finish have made this a huge problem, and if you need temporary lines on your floors, you should talk to somebody first, including us. You can give us a call. And another thing, using the wrong cleaner or dust mop treatment can also cause adhesion problems when it comes time to recoat the floor itself. Rarely problems with the finishes themselves will cause the issues. Most complaints are caused by quote unquote operator error. So you got to be careful when doing this. Now, this is actually a video. Let's pray that it works. But this is an example, an extreme example of that being peeling finish. Now, assuming you can hear this, this is a floor where we were supposed to scrub and recoat. After we started cleaning it, the existing finish began to peel off in sheets. Proper preparation by the previous contractor would have prevented this issue. In the end, we had to sand the floor. We could not just wet scrub it. And that cost the owner a lot more than they were expecting, for sure. And it just peels right up like that. Yeah, so that's definitely a subtle sign. Let's see. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, skip a little too far. Perfect. Yeah, and so with that, we just got an example. For whatever reason, the images is rendering Sue. But this is supposedly safe tape. What it can do to your floors. It can just pull your paint right off. So again, really, tape is not always your best friend when it comes to using it on your floors. Now, again, on the topic of what can go wrong, we're going to talk about some subtle signs of moisture and water problems. As you probably can guess, water and hardwood floors do not mix very well. If you see any of these signs, you should call a professional as soon as possible. These are including cupping boards, separating and cracking boards, floor sleeves that are not working correctly, discolored boards, discolored cracks, and mold in your floors. They're subtle, they're hard to detect, but going back to your weekly maintenance, these are really the things you should look for on a weekly basis to make sure that your floor is in good condition. Now, there are many sources for water intrusions. Despite popular belief, a leaky roof is not always the culprit. Figuring out why your floors have moisture damage is not always so straightforward. In our experience, these are the biggest culprits. So the first of which being outside drains are not kept clear. When they get clogged, the water itself can back up into the gyms and cause water damage. Inadequate door sweeps that don't prevent rain or water from entering the gym also can cause moisture damage. No guard over the fire sprinklers, that's a big one. We've actually seen students kick soccer balls up and knock the fire sprinklers off and cause massive amounts of water damage. Water fountains can actually be a huge problem. We suggest and recommend that they be disabled inside of the gym because a malfunction with your water fountain can cause a lot of floor problems. And in terms of your maintenance in-house, using too much water to clean the floor can cause moisture problems. And you never really want to let liquid sit too long on the floor, and you never really want to mop a wood floor itself. And this is an interesting one. Improper use of your HVAC or AC system can actually cause problems that mimic subtle moisture damage. So wood flooring is hygroscopic, and it responds to moisture in the air. If the humidity swings greater than 15 degrees, it can cause your floor to move and get damaged. So what does this mean? Turning off your AC or your HVAC for school breaks can actually damage your floors. So it's recommended that you want to keep your floors within a range consistently. The MFMA recommends maintaining your indoor relative humidity between 35 to 50 degrees and your temperature between 55 to 75. While those are very technical numbers, the gist is you just don't want massive swings in humidity or temperature in order to ensure that you don't run into any issues with your floor. But yeah, so that's a sneaky one. And a not so subtle sign of water problems. If your floors look anything like these, you definitely got a problem, and we do recommend that you reach out to somebody. Other preventable problems include broken boards and dead spots. Knowing your floor's load limits before you bring in heavy equipment is actually quite important to ensuring that you don't run into any broken boards or dead spots. You always want to place plywood and paper under heavy equipment that you need to bring inside of your gym to prevent these boards and the subfloors floors from breaking. Now, here's a little joke that I definitely thought of myself, and that is, how many people does it take to change a light bulb? Well, in the flooring industry, it's 5. You need 1 to operate the scissor lift and 4 others to move the plywood underneath the equipment. It's also important that you ban black-soled shoes to prevent black marks, and use cleaner and tennis balls at the end of a broomstick to kind of erase these black marks should you need to. If you use your gym for non-sport events, you could consider purchasing a whole gym floor cover. That we've seen that work in the past as a preventative measure. But let's say you need to get your annual or your long-term maintenance done by a contractor, and you need a couple of quick questions to ask them to ensure that they know what they're doing. This is a good list. And I do believe this PowerPoint will be provided, so you don't necessarily have to write these down, but the first of which, how long have you been in business and how long have you been working on sports floors? The reason that this is an important question is because oftentimes you'll see that residential floor contractors might not have specific experience with gyms, which could lead to maintenance issues. Other important questions include, do you have general liability or workers' comp insurance? What is your warranty? Are you going to do the work yourself, or will you subcontract any part of it out? Do you have a contractor's license? And as you can see, this is something you can actually look up for yourself on California Licensing Board's website. Are you a member of the MFMA? What products do you use? And do those products themselves have warranties? How long will the project take, including cure time? And always be sure to ask for references. And if you get references, you can call them. References are a really important way of being able to be sure that the contractor knows what they're doing and they do good work. But as a very long-winded presentation, if nothing else, the 5 big takeaways that we ask that you carry on after this call would be: number 1, to use the walk-off mats and then vacuum them or shake them out once a week. Regular maintenance of your walk-off mats can really keep your gyms in good shape. Use dust mops and use them on your floor as much as possible. Dust mops are your best friend in terms of daily and regular maintenance. Number 3 is a huge one. As we said, there's no such thing as safe tape. If you need to use tape, you should just give us a call first. And make sure to turning off your HVAC system for long periods of times can cause floor damage. Again, you don't want to swing your temperatures or humidity too much. But if you ever have any questions, if you ever see any subtle signs or what you think might be a subtle sign when you're doing your weekly inspections, you can be sure to call us anytime and we'll be happy to help and answer any of your questions, regardless of whether or not you're a client of ours. It's kind of a hobby. Here are some links for further information and education in terms of if you want to see that tacking process, for example, and how it looks in person. There's some videos in here to do that. But yeah, some further research and information. And if you do have any contact or any questions, you can contact us either by phone or by email, or you can look on our website itself. And I think it's at this point that we will be open to questions if you have any.
Great, thank you, Roger, so much. Yes, let's go ahead and open the floor to questions. And while those are coming in, I'm going to pop a copy of the presentation in the chat. So you're more than welcome to download it if you'd like.
Awesome. And then I think Sue had another link.
Oh, okay.
That we could pop in the chat. It was the video that wasn't working. But
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's 7. Okay.
All right, so it looks like our first question is in, and basically, so is it never a good idea to use tape? Does this require someone to hand paint?
Sue, what do you think?
If you need temporary badminton lines or something, then we can work with you and teach you how to do it. We have some customers who every year they count on that they have to put the temporary lines on and then they pass to come back and fix it. But it's best if you're going to use them often, just get them painted the next time somebody does your annual maintenance. Get the lines painted.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway there being use tape at your own risk. It can, and it does, in our experience, cause a lot of problems. But yeah, should you be needing lines for any reason, it is generally recommended just to get them painted on. And any contractor can help you with that.
Sounds good. Thank you. We have another question here. So if nail heads are starting to show up, is that a sign that it's time to replace the floor?
Absolutely.
For sure.
That's the key sign.
Yeah. Definitely. Like we said earlier, you only have a certain number of sands that you can do in a floor's lifetime, right? Because if you're actually abrading and taking, going down to the bare wood, after a while, there's not going to be any wood left. So seeing those nails is a clear indication that you probably need to get a new floor. or at the very least, you should ask somebody what's the best course of action.
All right, any more questions? All right, new question here. If you convert an oil-based floor finish to a water-based finish, what is involved and does it cost more?
Great question.
Now, do you want to sand it completely and then go to water base, or do you just want us to do a couple of coats of finish of water base over the oil base?
Nate, go
Because-
ahead and unmute yourself if you want to elaborate on your question. That wouldn't be a problem.
It's a good question, really is.
Yeah, hi, this is Nathan Adams from Presentation. I've converted a gym floor before, but it was 4 years ago. And it was successful, and I can't remember if we sanded it down and put new graphics on the floor or not. I don't believe we did at that time. We just essentially sanded it down to the wood. The graphics were still there, and then we went back with a water-based finish, which, you know, changed the whole tone of the wood. It was a different color, it wasn't yellow, and the VOCs are substantially less. So I'm just kind of curious, is that realistic? Can you do that? And
we do that all the time. That's our guys don't even want to use oil-based finish anymore because of the VOCs. So, but we can also, if you already have a yellowed old oil-based finish, we can also coat over it. And this is with the water-based finish, this is a big case of we have to make sure it adheres correctly. But it's doable.
Yeah, so there's definitely a price difference between just putting water base over, you know, your annual wet scrub maintenance versus getting it sanded. Like Sue said, it's doable, but if you wanted to make the switch, as most people are doing recently, from oil to water, then sanding is probably your best bet.
thank you.
Of course.
I just saw another question about recommended amount of time that you should periodically sand down the floor, and it's 8 to 10 years is what the MFMA recommends. And it really depends on how much you use your floor and how well or poorly it's maintained.
Yeah. The NBA says 5 years, right? But they're using their floors all the time.
And they got lots of money.
So it depends for sure.
We have another question about tape. Just can any tape, any type of tape be temporarily used on the gym floor?
So
I know
if
we've
you're
covered it, but it wouldn't hurt to just go over it a little bit more.
Great
if
question.
you're gonna use it, the standard rule is don't leave it on too long. And that's even less than 24 hours, or 24 hours is a good rule of thumb. And when you pull it up, you want to pull it slowly and at a 45-degree angle. And, you know, to try not and pull that finish, or the tape or the paint off.
Absolutely, because in those videos you saw where the paint's coming right off, that's because somebody presumably just pulled the tape right up and it pulled the tape up, the paint with it, and the finish sometimes. So
Actually, that slide didn't work, but
it is unfortunate that slide didn't work.
we use blue painter's tape. But even if we leave it down too long, we run the risk of pulling stuff up. There's that white tape that was in the slide, which is touted as a safe tape, but it really isn't. So you just have to be really careful.
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes you really can't get around it. So I suppose it's a use at your own risk. But yeah, be super careful when pulling it up would be the biggest takeaway there.
Another question, we have a non-athletic maple floor of Heritage Vintage, which needs much better finish than previous made with high traffic compound. Would you have recommendations in your referral links on this?
Sure, that's just, and that's the kind of work we do all the time as well. It's that sanding. We just showed you a sports floor, but you can also you sand the floor down to the bare wood and put more finish on it. And you don't want to use a high gloss finish like we use on the sports floors. You want just a matte or eggshell low gloss finish, and it'll look brand new. So you could give us a call depending on where you are.
Oh,
We can give you some recommendations.
Yeah, I can't think of any brands at the moment, but Sue's right. Usually the operative work would probably be like a matte type of finish. Non-glossy is probably what you'd be looking for in that case. So that's generally that. And if you need a price list or anything like that, or if you're actually seriously looking to get something done, give us a call and we can have our guys work with you. Find a product that works best for your floor.
All right, new question. During our recent floor refinishing of 2 gyms, both applications had ridges of excess finish that failed to level, creating an uneven surface. Do you have any thoughts on circumstances that would cause this type of finish problem?
I hope we didn't do that.
I hope so as well.
Oh, goodness.
So that's bad operator problem.
Yeah.
They had too much finish and not the right applicator.
That's
I guess they plowed through it, but didn't overlap their each row, and which created the ridge in between it. It's not the finish, that's the operator.
Yeah, and so that's where we're talking about operator error to some extent. Specifically, the process is putting down the finish. For those that don't know, you can pour the finish down and you follow behind with another individual that has what we call an applicator. And if that applicator is not being applied evenly, that's when you can run into issues of it not being leveled correctly. If you're too heavy-handed while pouring the finish down, you might get excess finish, and that can also lead to some issues. So it's really just whoever put it down was either too heavy-handed with the pouring, or they weren't going super straight with the actual applicator itself. Would be my guesses.
All right, next question. We have a problem with bleachers scraping the floor as they're open and closed. Any suggestions?
I'm going to suggest you talk to Jerry Kincannon at American Eagle. He maintains and repairs bleachers. He's the best. And it's good that you're looking at this now before it gouges your floor.
Yeah. I don't know if it's normal for it to be gouging and scraping up your floor. So that's definitely less of a floor thing and more of a bleacher thing. But if Sue, if you could provide them with this.
Yeah, let me give you Jerry's number. Let's see.
Yeah. Because you might need some bleacher work for that one.
We have a couple of minutes left, so if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat.
Okay.
And I'll just say, this is Gail. It's been going on for a long time, but it's just really, it's just barely scraping. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Look at it. Yeah, deal with it now. And you.
Yeah. I mean, at the very. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sue.
I was going to say bleachers should be looked at pretty often or periodically. It's a safety problem as well, or a safety issue. So Jerry does the maintenance, and he's a very good person to talk to.
Getting it checked out early, even if it's not super deep, the scuffs, it's still a good idea because it'll save you money if it's like on a floor side as well, right? If the bleachers get really bad and they really start digging into the floor, that's the point where it could get quite expensive. So preventative and early detection is probably the best thing. So it's awesome.
So Susan, you're sending some content.
Yeah, I'm still looking for it. Roger, it might be on your computer. Jerry Kincannon with a K.
Let's see here. But worst case scenario, if we run out of time, can I send this to Andrea?
Yeah, you can send it to me, no problem. And I'll pass it along to Gail.
That'd be awesome. I think we might just have to do that then.
Okay, not a problem. I will pass that along.
Thanks,
All
Gail.
right, well, we are right on the nose. So thank you so much, Susan and Roger, for presenting. This was very informative. I am recording, so I will be sending out an email with the recording and the presentation probably on Monday. And with that, thank you so much for attending and thank you for presenting. And we will see you in the next one in about 10 minutes.
Thank you for having us, everybody.
Thank you.